Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Washington Chess Congress. This is the 6th round. My opponent for this round is Robbie Kevlishvili. Did I spell that right? Kevlishvili. Yes, I did. I was worried. Grandmaster from the Netherlands, despite the Georgian last name. All my preparation before the game was based around the fact that he likes to play the Slav and semi-Slav defenses. And I was thinking what to do if, he decided to use this, for example. Or, we could get the position in the semi-Slav like this. And I show up to the board, and he plays d5, and then he plays this. I'm like, that's interesting. Why is he using this move order? So the benefit of playing d5, e6 from the white side, if you have a feeling your opponent's going to play the semi-Slav, is you can play knight c3, and then you with this move order, you can play an exchange queen's gambit decline variation, which is extremely deep and historical variation. But I don't know a whole lot about it, and I don't want to wing it. I know more about other openings. So I decided to just play, the normal knight f3 and knight c3. And I was like, all right, well, he'll probably play c6, because that's what that's what he plays. And then he plays knight d7. So now we have a knight d7 queen's gambit declined. There is some theory here, and actually, this is one of the variations I have not yet gotten around to studying, like, the meta of. There's some different ideas behind black playing this, as opposed to the traditional move bishop to e7, namely that black can actually take on c4. If you put your bishop out to this classical f4 square, there's always a knight coming to d5, hitting both of these pieces. But that's just going to be my homework. I decided that I'm going to play solid, and I'm going to play the way I normally would against the semi-Slav. If you remember my game... lunch got stuck in my tooth. Fantastic. We're grooming on the fly here. If you remember my game against Chris Yu from Las Vegas, I just sort of played like that game. Like, I played e3, he played a6. This is not the same game, but I was like, I'm going to play bishop e2, b3, bishop b2, and I'm going to castle. And then we're going to see. We're going to have kind of a semi-Slav position. Now, I actually played bishop e2 instead of bishop d3, because if I play this, he hits me with the tempo, and then he plays b5, and black is completely fine. If black can get this and hasn't even moved the c-pawn yet, black has a completely okay position, and I cannot pose black any problems. Bishop e2 is designed so that if dc4, I can actually throw in a4, preventing b5. So dc4 does not come with the tempo. Big meta strategies of the title players. He plays b6. I'm like, all right, castles, boom, 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 boom. All right, we have this position. Now, normally, I have gotten to this position with this pawn on that square and this pawn on this square. So in my mind, I'm thinking, like, what the heck is the difference, right? Like, what are the differences? Well, since the pawn is here, so not there, the bishop is not blocked. And actually, knight e4 is a good idea. Like, for example, in some positions, I can play bishop d3, queen e2, or queen c2 and go for a very quick e4. I can't really play for a quick e4 here because black actually controls that very well. He's not going to play c6. He's going to play c5 in one go. So I'm like, all right, let me start with queen c2, because then if knight e4 and I trade, you blocked your bishop and I'm not forked. My bishop is not standing on the d3 square. So actually here, even knight e5, I mean, it's completely fine for me. I'm going to start with queen c2. He plays c5. And, oh, sorry, I did not play knight g5. That was a misclick. I'm bad, but not that bad. So now, against c5, the way these positions normally work is white puts rooks on d1 and e1. Black has a queen on e7 and plays rook e8, rook d8. That is what I know. That is as far as my knowledge goes. There is also, but logically, you would think that d1 and c1 makes sense. And also, if you've put your queen on c2, the rook is going to come here and hit this queen at some point. So once you bring your rooks to the middle, however you do, your queen actually likes to dip back and sometimes even team up with the bishop on the diagonal. And what can happen is a transformation of pawns like this. And EB versus DC is known as hanging pawn structure. Black has the hanging pawn structure. They're not loose or literally hanging, but they're kind of hanging in the middle of the board. And then you play like, normal rook moves, and then you probably slide your queen or bring your queen out here. And if it gets hit, you slide it, over here and kind of hang out near the king. Knight to a4 is always useful. And like I said, normally this pawn is on a7, but the way he played it, it's on a6. So maybe it can be a target in some positions. I don't know. So I'm sitting there thinking, how do we move from here? Like, do I take now on c5? I'm like, let me bring my rook. He brings his rook. I'm like, let me bring my rook. He brings his rook. I'm thinking, do I play bishop d3? If I play bishop d3 now, the problem is that he gets c4 with tempo. Like, if I can let him get c4 without a tempo, you know, that's one thing, but this just doesn't, I don't know, you know, b5. I mean, black just seems to get everything here. So I'm not going to go bishop d3. So then I was thinking, well, if bishop d3 doesn't work, you know, maybe I'll go bishop f1. Bishop f1 is common because in a lot of positions you can play g3 and then even bishop out this way, or bishop on g2. The reason I didn't want to take and then play bishop to one of these squares like this is because I just thought that d4 was very strong. I thought d4, and all of a sudden my knight is going to get opened up, like he'll take and open my king, damage my structure. That looks really bad. I don't like that at all. So I'm sitting there thinking, yes, I can get to this structure, but I mean, why is my rook here, you know? Why didn't I go c1, d1? I mean, I know you're supposed to do this. This queen's not an e7. So I'm trying to figure all this out, and I'm like, you know, I'm already falling down on the clock a little bit. So let me just play a move. Let me play bishop f1, and then we'll figure it out. He has to make a move now. He has to move queen e7 or queen c7 or h6 or something. And I come back to the board, and homie hit me with this move. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I almost wanted to just like disappear. Like I felt so stupid because you're not supposed to get trapped on this file because knight to e4 comes and black is almost winning. And the thing is, I'm not the kind of person, for better or for worse, I mean, I have to improve this ability of mine. I am not the kind of person who makes such a dumb mistake and can just like roll with the punches. I'm sitting there like, yo, why'd you even come to this tournament? Like, why are you going to be playing with the white pieces against a strong title player? You gotta like get the rating points. You gotta get these good results. You get to play these GMs like three, 4 times in these tournaments if you're, you know, playing well. What the hell are you doing, bro? What are you doing? You just have a worse position. Yeah, I should have taken on c5 and then kind of moved on with my life, queen b1 or whatever. And here's why, because if I take with the knight, he does something like this, and now he's just threatening bishop b4. Like I'm busted. I have like almost. I mean, he can even play things like this, and queen h4. I mean, queen f2. It's like a highlight reel knockout, you know. And I'm like, okay, from this point forward, I'm gonna try to mitigate my bad mood, and we're gonna try to fight back because our position really sucks. We're complete morons that we allowed this. You're not supposed to let this happen. That's ED. Knight e4. I'm like, okay, let's go one step at a time. I have to get my queen unpinned, queen d3. Now, what I anticipated, he'll play bishop to b4. However, somehow in some of these positions, I'm sort of untangling. Like, I'm defending everything. It's not so easy for him to roll forward because anytime he moves his knight, I will take this rook. And if he moves his queen out, the rook will need to take the rook and no longer defend c3. And what I mean by that is he played b5 and I saw, okay, queen a5 is coming. But queen a5, bishop b4 doesn't do anything, because the rook cannot simultaneously attack and defend this rook when the queen gets out. So to catch up on the clock and try to get out of a bad position, and one of the worst moods I've ever been in, like, I mean, against Jojin Chao, like when I was getting outplayed, I felt bad. I was like, God damn it. But like, this is just so idiotic. So idiotic. It's like when I make fun of, you know, people in Guess the Elo. Well, now it comes right back onto me. Except it's like, you know, one bad pawn move in an opening that you have no business messing up if you're going to be, you know, a strong player. And I'm more than okay sharing this with all of you, but I'm not going to sit there like, I blundered, but I just roll with the punches. Life is good. Be positive. No, it's brutal out here. So I played a4. He goes bishop b4. I play rook c1. He takes. Now, I figured I'm going to lose this pawn, either with a queen a5 or a knight b6. Like, he's going to take, and he's going to go win my pawn. The engine actually hates that. The engine thinks his position is so strong, he should leave this pawn alone and not grab the material, and rather just suffocate me to death. Sit the horses just on top of me, and, well, if you're into that. And then, like, I mean, I'm just going to get flattened because the horses weigh like 2,000 pounds or something. So, like, just crush me like this, okay? What I thought he was going to do, and it seemed like the most natural thing to do, is just to take and take. Like, just win the pawn. I mean, this idiot lost the pawn in 20 moves with white. Take the pawn. And suddenly I started thinking. Not thinking. I suddenly started thinking particular thoughts about this position. I didn't suddenly start thinking, although it certainly looks that way. Like, wait a minute. What if I play here? Like, this is his extra pawn. I mean, is it really that impressive? And what's going to happen is I'm going to end up playing against this really stupid bishop. So my bishop will live here when everything clears and pressure. My knight will jump forward. My queen will try to get into his position. I'm not so sure this is so bad. And suddenly the tide starts shifting. We trade everything. I saw all this. He plays queen c8. Of course, I shouldn't trade queens. That actually leaves him with a good pawn. So I'm starting to think, what is the best idea here for me? Like, how am I supposed to play this position? What do we want? And I thought about where on the board I would like my queen. And the answer is right here. I want my queen on e7. Because on e7, it pressures the bishop, immobilizing the queen, and really immobilizing the bishop too, because it's really hard to move that bishop, and pressuring the king, and pressuring some dark squares, just always making sure that the a-pawn is going to be kind of under lock and key. So I'm starting to get some confidence. I'm like, okay, easy peasy, right? So queen to a3. I'm actually not so sure I'm going to lose this game after all. So queen a3, let's go. He plays knight c3. Now, here, I have a choice between moves. So first of all, I obviously can just go queen e7. That was my plan. And for example, if he rotates his knight to the middle and I get knight e5, I'm not so sure he's even winning anymore. I think actually he's in serious trouble because queen e6 is on the cards. Knight b6 hits the queen and threatens all sorts of mates. If he plays a move like h6 trying to escape, now his knight is going to get stranded. I mean, all his pieces are bad, all for the cost of one pawn, but he can't move any of his pieces. So it's really tough to decide whether I want to go for queen e7 or play knight e5 first, because the truth is, where do I want my knight? I want my queen over here, but where do I want my knight? Do I actually want my knight on that square? Yes, if possible, but it's not going to be possible because if I get it, I'm better. So he's going to stop me by playing f6. So I need my knight here because my knight pressures the bishop, the pawn, with my bishop. My bishop is so much better than his bishop, and that knight is very powerfully standing, hitting everything, blocking his queen from ever hitting me on the back rank, right? So I'm like, which do I play first? The truth is, I don't know. I don't know. They're actually both fine, and they both lead to different things. So I decided queen to e7, and then when he plays f6, now I'm going to play knight d2. Here I got him a little shook. My man was thinking for like 10 minutes here, I think. So I'm getting that confidence back. I'm like, all right, no chance we're going to lose this game now. Buckle down, hold it together. Everything's cool. Let's go. Knight d2, knight b3, knight c5. I actually didn't even see a way for him to coordinate here. I didn't see a way. I was like, we're going to draw this. And then I come back, he plays bishop c6. Okay. The idea of this move is, number one, he wants to go knight b5 now. So if I continue with my plan, by the way, if I get my knight to e6, he can resign, because that's mate. He can't stop that. So you got to be a little careful. So he's going to go knight b5. He's not going to go bishop b5, I highly doubt. But bishop b5, if like I go here, like, yeah, I mean, if I let him play bishop b5, I'm in trouble now, because he defends everything. So if I let him play bishop b5, he will, but not if I go in with my knight. So I have two choices here. Queen c5, knight b3. And I couldn't figure out what the hell his next move was going to be. I was like, is there any difference between moving my knight to b3 into c5? Or is there a difference between starting with queen c5, knight b5, knight b3? Calculating. You know, there's a really beautiful tactic. Queen c5, bishop d7, trying to trade queens with me. Bishop a6. I really wanted to play this. He wasn't going to fall for it. The idea is that if he takes, then I take, and there is no back rank mate. And if takes this, then takes. So I was like, okay, queen c5 makes sense. Knight b5, knight b3. I don't know. I mean, knight a5 is coming. I mean, he can still try to like defend everything. You know, he showed me this after the game. We analyzed. Like, this is crazy. I mean, his position is so passive. I highly doubt he can actually get advantage here. But that's one option. The other option is to play knight b3, which is what I did in the game. So it turns out there is a difference. There is a difference. Queen c5 or knight b3. When I play knight b3, he actually can go here. He doesn't have to play the knight to b5. But I thought this was nuts. I was like, what is he doing? Why would he ever do this? I just go f3. Why is his knight on the edge of the board? But then I started thinking, I'm like, somehow this bozo, not my opponent, the knight is going to rotate around and cover d8. What the hell is going on? And now this move begins to make sense because he's going to try to trade queens with me. And like, not right away, because if right away I take on a6, but like if I ever try to get to that pawn, he will just try to trade queens and come down the middle. Like if I go queen a7, he's going to go queen e8 and queen e3. So I'm like, okay, knight c5 looks really natural. I can also wander off here, but I don't know. I got a little bit worried about queen e8 and the queen coming down the middle. Also not, you know, the highest amount of time on the clock. And again, I thought about this move to send the knight here, but I'm like, am I helping him or myself? I don't even know. I don't even know who I'm helping. I mean, the knight is going to come back around. I don't know if I'm helping myself here. All these thoughts going through my mind. I'm like, okay, let's go knight c5. I know that he's going to play a5. And what I calculated here, all the way from when I played the move knight to c5, was that if he plays a5, and I play queen a7, and he plays queen a8, I'll take you all the way back here. I calculated knight c5, a5, queen a7, queen a8, takes bishop b5, paralyzing his bishop in the corner and his pawn, and now I'm just going to come back and win the pawn, and that's it. And that's it. I'm all in the clear. I am in the clear. And I said, you know what? Let's go for it. Knight c5. He's not going to play a5. He's got to do something else. Maybe bishop b5 or something. And then he did this. I'm like, what is he doing? I mean, if we go to this endgame, he has one way to play this. He cannot put a knight on e6. That doesn't work. For example, king f7, king f2. If he tries to trade my knight, I just do this. And then before I take his pawn, I just guard mine. That's it. It's a draw. But I saw that he can go this way with the knight. And the idea is he's just in time to hit my bishop. And when I move my bishop, he's just in time to guard his pawn. But I have this move. And I'm now threatening to take the pawn. And I'm like, well, he's going to have to chase my bishop. And then I can just go back. And if he does this, that's easy. King f2, king e2, king d2, kick his knight out, take the pawn. That's it. I'm in the clear. And then I realized everything I'm saying, right? Like knight b3, knight d6. I played king f2 in the game. Knight b3. I realized he can let me take. He doesn't need to run. He can just go here because he can trap my knight. Oh my God. This dude can trap my knight. I was not convinced I was winning here. Also, he can do this. And I need to run back. Then he can just plant my knight on c1. I'm super passive. Look at this. I'm completely locked in. And then what I need to calculate now is, am I not losing here? By the time I run over to this pawn, he's going to activate his king and try to sneak in over here. Am I really not losing? This is so hard to calculate 8 moves out with no time on the clock. I'm like, I have no clue. I can only beeline toward this position. So I said, you know what? I don't really like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my king. I'm going to bring my king first. All the way back here, I'm going to bring my king. I'm not going to play knight b3. I'm going to bring my king first. And then I realized it gets even worse. Because my new idea was to play this, and something like this, and king e3. And now I'm in time because I move my king. Boom, boom. I win the pawn on c4. He doesn't get to push my... I'm so smart. But the difference is, he traps my knight with his king. He traps my knight with his king. And that's what happened in a slightly different move order. I'm forced to do this because now he's just in time to reactivate his bishop. So we get to this position. And now we're all trapped. Everybody's paralyzed. It's going to come down to who runs out of moves with these pawns. If he plays c3, I stop him. So he plays g5. And I'm sitting there going, if I play g4 and like h6, h3, what's going to happen is he's going to go here. I now have to play this or else his king gets in because I have moved my knight. And when this happens, he's going to go here. And I'm lost. There's nothing I can do because either I let his king in or I just run out of moves. I mean, I literally have no moves here. The engine slowly realizes this is losing for white. Although it's still very difficult. I mean, g4 looked insane to play. To lock your pawns on the exact same color as this bishop, while this pawn decoys both your pawn and your knight away. And I played g3 because what I realized was that there's a drawing idea. f5, h3, h5. I thought I had f4. Takes, king takes. With the idea to play this, and this is a draw. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I'm losing, obviously, but this is my one rabbit in a hat. I can go for this endgame. It's definitely losing, but I can go for this endgame. And it was a bit of a cold shower when in this position, I realized that f4 check is just winning for black. And he thought for a few minutes, and he played it, and it's winning for a pretty beautiful reason. So, for example, gf4, something like this, and he takes, and you think I'm gonna take here, right? So this is winning for black because his pawn is the same color square as his bishop. If it wasn't, it would be a draw. And I don't have time to win this pawn or create a fortress. Cloud-based Stockfish doesn't even realize this because mine only goes to depth 25. It takes it like 25, 26 depth to realize this is lost. It's lost because, I mean, black just walks the king over. And white basically runs out of moves if this were to happen. But it's still a little tricky, but it's definitely winning. And I just resigned when he played f4. So, yeah, I mean, the whole game, my emotions were simply that of the video title, which is why I made it that. Very frustrating. But now I have an hour until my next game, and I just have to bounce back. The truth is, when I don't do really stupid things in the opening sometimes, I actually can play some seriously decent chess, like I was doing in this game, which ultimately came down, you know, to a pretty complex endgame that I was trying to defend. But I'm tired of defending slightly worse endgames against grandmasters. Holy crap. Can we please get a good game? Anyway, I'll see you all for round number 7.